Hey guys, my name is Chantel. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for hanging out with me today. So today we are going to talk about Idolish7 third beat episode 9, the conclusion to the backstory of Yuki and Banri's Rivale. So let's just go right into it. And basically this week's episode starts off with Banri and Yuki receiving Momo's letter. And I love how excited Banri is over the letter. And he's like, I want to keep it. And instantly Yuki is like, who cares? You can have it. And he's like not interested in it until Banri tells him what the letter was about. And basically the letter, it said that Momo was really grateful that Rivale did Our Incomplete Selves and they wrote that song because now it means so much to him and it basically saved him. And when Yuki is hearing this, he's like, let me see the letter, and he reads it for himself and he's so moved, like he starts crying. And you guys, that was so sweet. Like so many emotions went through me because Yuki has been wanting this for so long. We already saw in the last week's episode where Yuki just wanted people to see him for his music, not just because he's pretty. And finally, there's someone, which is Momo, who really loves their songs and like his songs that he makes, and to the point that it changed him. And it's such a beautiful thing, you know? Which then leads into the conversation of Yuki saying how he was never really motivated this whole time. He never had a reason to continue, and he actually thought about quitting until he saw Momo's letter. This letter also changed Yuki's life for the better. It gave him a reason to continue his music career. It gave him a reason why he loves doing what he does and wanted to do better and continue this. He finally found it. Meanwhile, though, Banri, we get to hear from him that at this point in time, for him, Momo's letter, it helped him to be satisfied with everything. He was already content, and he realized that he preferred working behind the scenes instead, which is so funny to me because for one, Yuki, it's a new beginning, and for him to continue music. Meanwhile, for Banri, that was the end. He didn't feel an need to really continue in a way, but I feel like he probably only did it to continue with Yuki, and so he could stand on his own 2 feet and to see Yuki, you know, grow and be able to support himself, which we do find out later that was like one of his dreams, right? But it's just kind of interesting to see how this letter changed how they felt about everything and just how different both of them were. Like they weren't necessarily on the same wavelength after that, even though, you know, yes, they are best friends, but they both had different outlooks to the future, if that makes sense. They had different futures that they were looking at that point, I feel like, anyway. And, you know, Banri also says that as Rivale got popular, the more he had less control of everything, which is honestly to be expected. The more popular they get, the more help you're gonna need, right? And because of this actually causes some trouble with Yuki, because apparently some guys thought that, I guess, his girl was cheating on him. I can't really remember too clearly. Well, something to do with this girl, and they were gonna take it out on Yuki because they thought he was the guy, I guess. And Momo saves the freaking day because he goes up the stage with these dudes and punches these dudes' faces and puts them in their place. Like, yo, I was so blown away. I never expected that out of Momo, honestly. But it goes to show you, like, how far he would be willing to protect Rivale. And it's just so adorable because then we get, like, this conversation later, which we see right after, basically. Right after their concert, they have a conversation with Momo and basically ask Momo if he's okay. And, you know, thanks for, you know, helping us out there. And Banri ends up asking for Momo's contact info, and Momo, he apologizes for ruining the concert, and at the same time he's like, no, I can't do that. I can't like give you my contact info and everything. But he ends up doing it, right? It was so cute because he was like fanboying so hard over Banri and Yuki. Like it was so adorable. And you guys, like, I could not handle it because I love Momo so much. So seeing him fanboy like this was like, It was so cute. And as Momo's writing like his contact info, Yuki recognizes his handwriting. He's like, hey, are you the dude that wrote us that letter? And sure enough, you know, he's like, yeah. And he asks him like how he says his name on like the lettering and stuff. And that's when Momo properly introduces himself to Rivale. And ever since then, Momo has been helping Rivale like behind the scenes and basically working for them and helping them set up and stuff like that. At least that's what it looks like, right? Which honestly was really adorable. Like he's a big fan and now he's like upgraded to like helping them and, you know, get to see some stuff behind the scenes and stuff. And Banri and Yuki really know him now. Probably not like real close, but they know him. And honestly, it's to be expected because, you know, Momo, like Banri said, he left a lasting impression, especially because he's a guy and he wrote them that letter that moved Yuki. And so, you know, this boy, Momo, this big Rivale fan, has definitely meant a lot to both Banri and Yuki, clearly. We then move on to the next thing that happens in this episode, which Banri mentions that it's been 5 years at that point. And they meet with Cujo. So Cujo, basically throughout this whole episode, you can tell that he was never interested in Banri at all. His sole focus was on Yuki. Just the way that he looks at Yuki, I was like, I do not like this at all. So you can tell he did not care at all about Banri. He just wanted Yuki. He saw Yuki as like this shiny, bright star, I'm assuming. And we do get to see that later on when Cujo talks to him again, that he basically tells Banri, because he meets with them alone, and tells him that he's second rate and that he should step down because he's holding back Yuki. And I'm like, what the hell is up with this dude? Cujo, like, why? Why would you do that? And I'm glad that Banri, you know, this doesn't affect him at all. Like, you can tell because, like he said earlier, because of Momo's letter, like, he felt satisfied with everything. So you can tell, like, he was never really concerned about that. Like, he didn't really care about this dude. He was just more concerned about Yuki, his friend. And he already saw, like, yeah, this dude, I am not gonna trust him with my best friend. Yeah, like, Cujo is just, he's not great, but he's not, like, Rio level great, if that makes sense. Because last season, I thought Cujo was bad, but then Rio-san came onto this whole season, and, like, he just takes the cake, man. Like, this dude is nuts. But again, he makes a really good villain, or I guess antagonist is the right term for this. Like, he's a really good antagonist, I'll say that. He makes the whole story really interesting. And yeah, but anyways, enough about that. As I was saying, so before like Banri meets with Cujo, Yuki already told Banri, like, this dude is creepy, I don't like it, and it looks like he's already planning everything, like he has everything planned out for us. I don't like it. So of course, you know, Banri's like, all right, we won't do it, we'll just stay away from him. And that's when Cujo, you know, again pulls Banri aside. And I guess he only did, like, Cujo did that just to see if he could get Yuki on board, if, you know, Banri could talk to him. But of course Banri can see right through Cujo, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not trusting my friend to you. You're giving me not like all these red flags already. Especially because, for one, Yuki also told him like how he felt about Cujo and just the vibes that he was getting from Cujo as well. So, you know, they both agree like he's not a good guy and not a good fit for them. Which then leads into Okazaki Rinto to come and try to recruit Rivale. And it was honestly really adorable because I love that Okazaki Rinto, like, he is so adorable. Like, I just love Rivale's manager. Like, he's like the cutest thing ever. Like, he's just, I love him. Anyway, he is like obviously like really nervous and like super happy to meet them. And he's like, you know, you guys are gonna be like our first debut artist. And you know, he's like talking like really happily and like trying to convince him to come to their agency, right? But Banri catches that. He's like, wait, what do you mean we're gonna be the first people that you debut? And that's when he's like, yeah, about that. Like, we're a new agency and you guys would be our first, but we're gonna do everything that we can for you guys. If you're willing, just take the time that you need to think about it. And of course, Banri's like, you know, we'll think about it. Which honestly, you can tell like he's just being so sweet and honest about this whole thing, which I think is something that both Banri and Yuki liked about Okazaki, like about Rinto. Like, it's just really sweet. I don't know, like I feel like that was just like a sweet little thing going on there. Like, he was just really nice and completely different vibe, obviously, from Cujo. And before they give their answer to him, Momo, you know, was gonna talk to them about something, and he's like, oh, my bad, like I'll step away, leave you guys to that. And they actually end up inviting Momo to, or actually asking him to see if he was gonna go to the after party. And I love that Yuki was like, hey, do you want to hear a new song? And then Momo, like, I love that Momo starts to flip out. He's like so happy that they even considered that, but at the same time he was like thinking about it so hard. He's just like, no, I want to hear it like with everyone else, like with the audience. Like, I want to see it, you guys perform it. Like, I don't want to hear it first. And it's just like, oh, he's so cute. Like, he's such a huge fan of them. And just, I don't know, like, just seeing Momo interact with both Yuki and Banri, like, back in the day, is so adorable and so sweet. And, like, he is just such a huge fan. And, like, I don't know, like, just seeing him act like this just reminds me so much of, like, how much I love Mamoru Miyano, like, as an artist. And it's just like I was saying in last week's video, you know, just when an artist changes your life like that with their music, they mean a lot to you. And knowing that feeling, like, I can easily see what Momo is feeling throughout this whole episode. And, you know, it's just like, it's so sweet. I don't know how else I can describe that. But anyway, so Momo leaves and Okazaki Rinto like asks like, who was that? And they tell him who Momo was. And that's when Banri gives him their answer. He's like, well, we'll think about it and we'll let you know, but we're definitely considering it. And he's like really happy to hear that. He's like, take all the time you need. I'll be here watching you guys in your, like, with your concert. Can't stay for long, but I'm gonna be here. And I love that Yuki was like, let's play our incomplete selves first, since he's also a fan of Rivale. So they were obviously trying to make like a good impression on him, and I knew this was gonna happen. Just the way that it was leading up to, I was just like expecting, because we already knew what's gonna happen next, right? We knew the accident was coming because we saw this in season 2 with Momo letting Iori, Ten, and Riku know how he was feeling and why he was feeling the way that he was in season 2, where his insecurities were coming from and stuff, and why he kept saying, why he said, you know, he wasn't the real Rivale. So we as the audience already knew that this was coming, and I knew it was coming, but at the same time I was like, I'm not like I was not prepared for it, like, just to see it again. But the way that they did this whole thing, like, again, like, we actually saw the thing fall on Banri, was just not great. It was really hard to watch, I'm not gonna lie, just because I knew this was gonna happen, and just seeing it happen and then just watching Banri go in slow motion trying to save Yuki and push him out of the way, and then seeing him get crushed, I'm like, this, like, why would you do this to me? Why did I have to see this again? Why? I thought seeing this once in season 2 was fine, but then seeing this like a little bit more detailed now in season 3 is even worse. My heart could not take that, man. And then just seeing the look on everyone's faces, oh my god, that was so traumatizing for everyone. Like, that was the one thing that I couldn't stop thinking about, was how traumatizing that must have been for everyone. And then seeing Momo's reaction too, like, he couldn't believe his eyes that just happened. And instantly, like, seeing all this, I'm just like, no freaking wonder Yuki doesn't want to sing our incomplete selves anymore. No wonder he said that song brings him a lot of trauma. Like, no freaking wonder. It's the song that they were singing that changed Rivale, the Rivale that was Banri and Yuki, and that sucks. Like, poor Yuki, man. Like, I just couldn't stop thinking about that throughout the whole episode, just how much trauma that brings him, especially because, you know, he was singing this and then just seeing his friend get injured, and on top of that, him up and leaving without a trace, without saying a word to him, just to protect Yuki from Cujo. Like, oh my god. Like, no wonder Yuki was like close to quitting. No wonder he feels the way that he does. And this also makes a lot of sense, because if you guys remember a few episodes ago, and this is something that I've been thinking as I've been watching these 2 episodes, with Momo saying how Yuki has always followed what Momo says, like, he always goes with what Momo says, right? Now seeing these 2 episodes, I can see why he follows Momo so much and doesn't like argue much, and he just goes along with what he says, right? I think it was because he was afraid of losing Momo the way that he loses Banri, which just adds more to the trauma that he has. I'm sure that's probably why he acts the way that he does with Momo, but at the same time, you know, Momo is also a person that changed his life and has saved him. So, you know, it makes sense why Yuki would act that way with Momo, right? Like, why he would go along with all his shenanigans and stuff like that. And it's just like I've been saying with my last video, these two episodes just make so much sense with how certain character, like how Yuki, Banri, and Momo act a certain way, like why they act the way that they do and just do things for certain reasons. Like, it all makes sense now, and it just gives them a lot more depth, and just, you know, I'm always mind blown, as you guys can see. After that, we do get Banri say, and that's where the rivale of me and Yuki ends. And I'm like, just the way that he says it is so sad. It's just sad, you know. It's kind of like tragic because it, like, their story ends like that, and it shouldn't have ended like that, right? And I just can't help but thinking, like, what would have happened if that thing didn't fall, like the light didn't fall on Banri? What would have happened? Like, would Banri still would have left? I feel like he probably would, because again, he did say Momo's letter satisfied something in himself. Like, he felt satisfied with his goal and everything, like he had accomplished already what he needed to accomplish, right? So it just kind of like makes me wonder, like, how would Banri depart from Yuki eventually if this didn't happen? Or would he would still continue being with Yuki as rivale, you know? It's just little things like that that make me wonder. But you know, things happen for a reason for these characters, and if it wasn't for that incident, we wouldn't have gotten Momo, and Momo wouldn't have been a part of rivale, and he wouldn't have been this close with Yuki. And you know, both of them clearly mean so much to one another, which then we move on to Momo's again point of view, because he's talking to Ryo as well, and we get to basically see how Momo found out about Banri leaving. He found out about this through an acquaintance, and how Yuki was gonna quit for good. And Momo instantly was like, I'm not gonna let this happen. I need to go talk to him. And you know, back in season 2, I was like, and this is something I probably should have mentioned in one of my videos, which is how, like, because this is something I've been wondering since season 2. It was like, how did Momo like know Yuki's address? But now, like, seeing all this like in the past and everything, like, it makes sense now, like how he would know where Yuki lives, you know, because he was, not that he was like super close with him, but he was close, you know. I mean, he helped Rivale behind the scenes and stuff like that, and Yuki knew of Momo. So, you know, it makes sense now. It was just one of the questions that I had. I was like, how did he know where he lives? Like, that's kind of weird. That's just something I was thinking about. But anyway, enough about that. So we get to see like the whole thing again, where Momo goes every freaking day to beg Yuki not to quit singing, and you can see just the hurt in Yuki's eyes and how badly he wanted to quit and how much he was suffering alone. And it was really, really sad, but I'm like Banri said, I'm glad that Momo was the one that was there for Yuki and helped him to not quit, which also was one of the things that Riku actually asks Banri, like, weren't you afraid that Yuki was gonna quit singing? And Banri says, you know, I believed that he wouldn't, and that the people around him would take care of him. And I do love that he says that he never expected that the person that would help him would be Momo. And again, it just makes this whole thing like so sweet, because Momo, like, every freaking day, like I said, he was there. Like, he never gave up. Like, if I were Momo, I feel like I would have lost hope and have given up, but he was just so persistent. You know, he didn't want Yuki to just let this end like this and so sad and suddenly, just like how he lost his dream of being a professional soccer player. Like, he didn't want him to miss out on his dream. And, you know, Yuki was also trying to tell him, like, you know, like, I don't really care about this, like, just let me be. And Momo was like, no, if you didn't care, then you wouldn't have gone through everything that you did, and you wouldn't have put up with all of that. And, you know, Momo was like the voice of reason. reason in that moment. And he was telling him, like, please continue to sing. And, with Momo, I feel like he just didn't want him to quit also because, Rivale means so much to him that, seeing all this happen, like, as a fan, like, it hurts, Like, I can only imagine just how much that could have hurt Momo. But because, Rivale meant so much to him, he didn't want to give up on them. He wanted to give Yuki that hope that he received from them. He wanted to give that back to them, Momo ends up telling Yuki that he will just work with Yuki for 5 years. He won't take up many more of his time. That way he won't feel like he's betraying Banri, which, makes sense because you can tell, like, Banri meant a lot to Yuki, like, so much. And just to see, like, his friend up and leave, like, that's gotta be heartbreaking. With all this, Yuki ends up agreeing to Momo's conditions, and he was like, all right, let's do this. Let's continue Rivale with me and you now. And Momo was just so, like, happy that Yuki's not quitting. And, Momo changed Yuki. Like, he saved Yuki in this moment. Like, he was really going through it. And just how, like, Rivale saved Momo, it was Momo's turn to save Yuki, which I think is really sweet, when you think about it that way. Which, interestingly enough, we do get to see Banri start at Takenashi Productions. And, he seems good, he seems happy, and he doesn't regret what he did. He doesn't feel like he made the wrong choice, but at the same time, he feels like he let go in the end. And I love that Takanashi basically tells him, you still have a dream. The only thing is that it's changed its form. And he basically points to the TV and he's like, look, there's your proof. And then you see Yuki and Momo on the TV. And just Banri's reaction, you guys, like, I wanted to cry. Just hearing him say how glad he was that the things that he did weren't a mistake. And how he's happy for Yuki. And now, people, both like people and insects, will love him now. And it's just like who's cutting onions up in here, man? And we actually move on to, like, right back to Momo talking to Ryo-san. And basically we hear from Momo how Yuki can't sing the song and how Momo can't listen to it around Yuki. He can't listen to our complete selves. And the whole time Ryo-san is, like, trying to, basically try to get Momo on his side. And he's like, oh, well, do you want me to do something about Banri? I can do that if you help me with my stuff. And obviously Momo was like, you don't get it. Like, that's not how I'm really feeling. Like, yeah, I feel threatened about Banri, but at the same time, I want to see them sing again side by side. And, Ryo does tell him, like, that doesn't make sense. You shouldn't be feeling those two emotions. And Momo's like, but that's how I feel at the end of the day. And, we can see that with Momo. We saw his insecurities in season 2. But at the same time, we can see just how much he loves Banri at the same time, Because, again, he's also part of his past and is part of the reason why he was saved when he felt like his dreams were over. And, of course, Ryo-san is kind of like, whatever. You can tell, like, he doesn't really care about what Momo's saying. And I think Momo realized that, and he was like, yeah, I just wasted my time. I'm gonna go now. And Momo says that he's never coming back. And I'm like, uh-oh. Because right after this, we get to see Ryo-san change so quickly. You can tell, like, he doesn't like any of this at all. And you can tell, like, he's got something coming. He's plotting something, obviously. And it ain't looking good. Which honestly makes me a little bit scared for Momo. Like, he's been trying so hard to be on Ryo-san's good side. And now that he isn't, yeah, I'm a little scared. The man is a little nutty. He's really scary and creepy. So I don't know what to expect with Ryo. Like, I'm scared. I'm genuinely scared for not just Momo, but for all the characters too, because I don't know what's gonna happen. And that scares me a little bit, not knowing what's gonna happen. I feel like I'm on a roller coaster that's, like, in the dark, and I don't know what kind of twists and turns are coming my way. That's kind of how I feel with Idolish7 right now. Oh, but I'm in it for the ride, man. There's no going back. All I can do is just strap my seatbelt and enjoy the ride, right? But anyways, you guys, as Momo leaves the apartment, he sees Yuki with the bat, which honestly gives so much Sogo vibes, like with Sogo and the screwdriver, and then with the knife back in season 1 too. Like, what is up with the violence? But, like, I just thought it was funny just seeing Yuki with the bat and he was ready to bonk Ryo if needed. Like, he was ready to protect Momo if it called for it. Like, he was ready. He was ready to beat somebody up if needed, if it was for Momo, man. And sure enough, like, they seem to be on good terms once again once they see each other. And Yuki does ask Momo if he wants to sing the song with him someday. And you can tell, like, that made Momo really happy. He's just like, sure. And Yuki says that he wants to tell Momo something, but he's gonna hold on to that for now. And I'm like, boy, if you don't tell us what you're gonna say to Momo right now. Like, I want to know, man. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the last and final thing that I want to discuss, which is with Riku and Iori. So Riku, you can tell, like, he's thinking about something and he's just lost in thought, and something is really bugging him. So much so that he doesn't even know what kind of pasta he's boiling. And Iori is there to listen. And Riku basically says, you know, if Idolish7 is gonna end someday, and Iori being the voice of reason, he was like, dude, like, don't let Banri's story get to you. Like, we're fine. It's not gonna happen to us. But Riku says, you know, that endings come so suddenly, and if that were to happen to Idolish7, he hopes that he can be like Banri and have a smile on his face and say that it was for the best and have no regrets. Which, honestly, like, Riku saying that, I'm like, you know, he has a point. Like, I'm sure Banri and Yuki didn't know that that was gonna be the end for them. I'm sure they probably thought it was gonna continue on a little bit longer, but it didn't. It just happened so suddenly, and there was nothing that they could do about it. So he has a very good reason why he feels like that. Like, he's afraid that this could happen in the future, but he hopes that, you know, he can be positive about it if it were to come. And of course, Iori ends up saying that he would not be okay no matter what. Even if everyone else is okay with it and they move on with their lives, like, he would never be happy with Idolish7 ending. And I'm like, oh snap, what is going on with my boy Iori? Like, I don't know how to feel about Iori's comment, you know, because here's the thing, like, we see bands break up all the time, and, you know, music, like with artists too, they can't keep making music forever. There's gonna come a point in time where they feel satisfied and they feel like that's it for them. They want to go and do something, or just have a normal life, or maybe split up and do a solo career. Like, we've seen that a lot, right? So just hearing Iori say, like, he would never be happy with that, like, has me wondering then what would satisfy Iori if and when Idolish7 were to end. Like, what would he be okay with? Because right now he says that he would not be okay with them ending. But, like, in the future, it's kind of like, well, Iori, you guys can't be like old grandpas singing, you know, like, that's not ideal either. So it just makes me wonder, like, how long does Iori want Idolish7 to be around, you know? So I don't know. It's just something to think about, you know, something that I feel like I'm going to be thinking about the rest of the season, which leads me to see that we only got a few more episodes left, and that makes me sad. But at least it's not the end of season 3, because we still got another core, another ride of pain and suffering, and I don't know what's gonna happen. So I'm a little scared, but also very much excited, you guys. And yeah, so that is it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!